Warning.
Watch very closely now. 3, 2, 1. Bzow! Check that out.
The following podcast features terrible jokes.
You know you can use Hot Wheels cars when you need to make a saving throw in D&D? Every car is die-cast.
Usually about board games.
We want the fun. Gotta have that fun.
Must insist that no one attempt to recreate any joke performed on this podcast.
We had less technical issues than $1 million company.
All right!
This is Boards and Swords.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Boards and Swords. This is a podcast bathing in air conditioning this week because didn't have that 2 weeks ago, and that's why we had to cancel a show there. But this is a podcast all about bad jokes, good folks, and some tabletop games. Who am I? I'm one of your hosts, Chris Renshaw. Let me flip it over here and say hello to my partner in crime, Mr. Philip Herbig.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to Monday.
Yeah.
Welcome to the end of your Monday. This is a great way to end your Monday.
This is a great way to end your Monday. It's a great way to end my Monday. By the way, when I said partner in crime, Winchester the cat looked at me and be like, "What'd you say?"
What's up?
Also,
I tell everybody I'm here, man.
also, don't be hating on people for turning on Steam games in the chat, because you can multitask. You got dual monitor setups, right?
I do have dual monitors set up. I have the TikTok, our spreadsheet, and all the news channel, and then I have the Discord open on the other monitor.
Yeah. So someone that's not, trying to manage a podcast can have both open. And yes, other Phil, we do exist. Like I said, just last time.
Was this is this that Christmas M&M's commercial from way back in the day?
Yeah.
He does exist. They do.
You mean you say from back in the day? They still play that.
I don't have commercials anymore.
Oh yeah, fair. Yeah.
We're both open. Where are you going with that, buddy?
I feel like a superhero because I got like my arms banded up.
What did you do?
Poison ivy.
This is why I keep my ass in the house.
Yeah. It started getting real bad over the weekend, and so just so I would stop itching it, you'll see me like start. But anyways, we got a lot to talk about here. No guests this week. But we've got a lot of news. So we have News-apalooza, which mainly means just twice the news you're used to. But it has been, like a month since we last recorded. So I got, plenty to talk about. All right, first up, supernatural sports are weird. Did you know that? Whenever the undead are playing, they always get penalties called on them. There's always too many players on the zombie side. It's funny because I get the, where are you going with this look, Philip? I'm just going to go ahead and preface that as I was putting together the news, I felt like I was stitching a story together. Because the first, actually, you're going to notice a trend throughout all of the news stories. And it feels like one is just building up to the next one.
Yeah.
So first off, Asmodee buys Zombicide IP from struggling CMON, his first move in new acquisition spree. So, I mean, I know it was like when Zombicide sold off, or CMON sold off all their IPs, where they're like, oh, at least they've still got Zombicide. And then CMON went, well, actually... So they sold, financially troubled board game publisher CMON has sold its flagship IP Zombicide to Asmodee, stripping the company of a series which has raised more than $40 million on Kickstarter since its 2012 launch. So this was one of the stories we didn't cover because it was just a nothing burger in the midst of a bunch of other things. But Asmodee's, you remember when it was talking about, like, the joke was like Asmodee was going around buying all these companies?
They were.
Yeah. Well, then they stopped because like then they had a bunch of
'Cause
debt.
somebody bought them. and
Yeah, they got somebody got bought, and then they had a bunch of debt because they bought, Embracer Group was buying a bunch of stuff. Well, now they're reigniting that strategy of buying up smaller board gaming publishers, distributors, and IPs, which it hopes will mirror the heavy expansion that it took in the 2010s that turned it from a specialist French operation to a global board game industrial heavyweight. Let's see. The game has apparently sold more than 2 million copies, putting it in a similar bracket to games such as the Wingspan series, which has sold about 2.4 million copies. Yes, but Wingspan has 3 games that have sold 2.4 million. Zombicide has 3 expansions for 1 game, and that's if you're lucky. So they've slumped. So CMON's been forced into selling its most famous and profitable title after slumping to a $3 million loss last year, almost double its total profits, and has halted new game development and campaign launches. Yeah. So there is. They did say that. I don't know if it's mentioned in this article, but yeah. So the deceased Zombicide game. That's like the deceased theme, the DC Zombies theme of Marvel of Zombicide and Marvel Zombies, like those rights still technically are with CMON because Deceased hasn't fully fulfilled yet technically. So
that's so weird how that stuff works.
Yeah. Just scrolling down to see if
look at the bottom. Zombicide crowdfunding success by the numbers.
By the number,
Marvel Zombies, of course. Marvel would be
Zombicide
by
Green
a very
Horde,
large
Zombicide
margin.
Black Plague. FYI, this is where I bought into the system at.
Black Plague.
In fact, the only Zombicide game I have is just Black Plague. Zombicide 2nd Edition, Invader, Undead or Alive. Actually, you know what? I bet I could put these in order. Because there was Zombicide, then Zombicide Season 2, Season 3, then we went to Black Plague, then we went to Green Horde. I think then came this is where it might be sketchy. Then I think came Invader, 2nd Edition, Undead or Alive, and then I think is when you got like the Deceased, or Marvel Zombies, Night of the Living Dead, and Deceased. So I bought it and it was like great, and I played it a couple of times, and then I never finished painting it, and then I finally finished painting it, and then now I'm like, well, at least I have a bunch of zombies if I ever need to have zombie minis in like a mini agnostic game. Yeah, exactly. Or even fantasy minis because it comes with a bunch of medieval heroes. So.
There you go.
But yeah, at this point it's like CMON's really. I mean, we already knew the writing was on the wall, but this is like the period at the end of the writing on the wall, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, what else is like? How do you even come back from this? You know how you come back from that? I'm just gonna. The next joke was just CMON's really leaning into the or not part of their name. CMON announces cancellation of Degenesis Clan Wars Game Found campaign after breakdown in relationship legal dispute with IP holder. So the hits just keep coming.
Oof.
So Degenesis Clan Wars, which Degenesis was a really interesting RPG, has been canceled by the IP holder amidst a legal wrangle between the pair. So, just nothing but sunshine and rainbows for CMON.
Exactly.
Announced the campaign's 12,000. So this is, I believe, this already funded. The way that was first written, it made me think that like it was an upcoming campaign, but no, this was okay. So this did fund. Yeah, Pledge Manager is closed. Yeah, was this the RPG or was this a board game based on the RPG? Okay, so this was a war game. But Degenesis was like an RPG that like I saw back in one of the first couple of Gen Cons we went to. It was like 2017, 2018. It was like the artwork was amazing, but it was one of those that was like each book was like $125, so it was like, huh.
Jeez, man.
Like it was an indie thing, it was a premium product, but at the same time it was like, also I gotta have money for Steak and Shake.
Yeah.
So, German design studio Six More Vodka had terminated contract with the publisher after what it says began as a collaborative and respectful relationship quickly became one in which legal channels were the only remaining form of contact. I'm sensing a pattern. Because remember, also CMON was like, we're in financial trouble because that one company owes us money. Or no, that was the opposite way. It was CMON owed this company money, and that's why they were in trouble. CMON claims after months of work during which it paid factories to complete molds for the game's miniatures, it received a surprise demand from SMV for some exceeding the $339,000 raised during the campaign, which included expenditures it said were not in the agreement, despite it saying it already paid SMV several advances. The company disagreed with CMON's account in the strongest possible terms, adding that it was not informed about the publisher's announcement in advance, that they were canceling the project, and certainly did not expect this attempt to shift the blame for the project's failure onto our plate. As a tiny company, we sought out CMON as a capable publishing partner to help deliver the game that we care so much about. However, we delivered all required materials over a year ago. Communication largely ceased. Transparency is a core tenet in communication with our fans, but with the game in CMON's hands and no details available to us, we are unable to uphold our standards, leaving us increasingly uncomfortable and eventually bringing us here. We can confirm only that the contract has indeed been terminated by us, a step which was not... Wait a minute. If they canceled the contract, why are they then surprised when CMON cancels the campaign? Like, that's like unplugging the computer and being surprised when it shuts off. This is
Well, that's why you have a UPS.
Fair, but like, I'm smelling some bullshit.
Well, I don't know. Which it all depends on the timeline of when it happened.
Well, they said that like they,
did the campaign get canceled and then the contract got
oh yeah,
cut, or did the contract get cut and then the campaign got canceled? Which?
Well, they said they canceled the contract. They said
in response to what?
They after extensive attempts to resolve matters in a more amicable manner. So like the way, again, who knows, but the way this reads as they canceled the contract and then CMON canceled the campaign. Again, it's kind of we're in a he said she said kind of matter, but that's the way it reads through this article. CMON has not yet responded to the request. The company said in its announcement, we have held up our end of the contract, paid SMV advances as agreed, and have continued to dedicate our own resources to bring this project to its current point. CMON added that the backers would receive a 100% refund for the campaign, although added that process would not begin until after final resolution. So... I'm just skimming the document. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
This obviously has had a crippling effect on the development of the D-Genesis IP, as they are now going on 2.5 years without a solid release and no return on investment in sight, along with the inability to provide our fans and backers with clarity on the subject. We're trying to keep our heads high and continue working on our latest project, Orkin, but we'll need to stay calm and see how the situation develops now that CMON has chosen to go this route. So, due to the termination of the contract, the IP is back in our hands, but we'll need to evaluate our options going forward, whether that's finding a way to make some of the assets available online as STLs, or finding a new publisher. We can't say for now. I don't know. It's easy to side with the little guy against CMON at this point, but I don't know. The way that this reads, I would not be surprised if it's you know, somebody was
It's everybody's fault.
again everybody's fault, but also at the same time, like, I wouldn't be surprised if CMON is technically right here, where it was they were trying to do their best, and then the little guy was like, "We don't like how things are going. Pay us more money." And CMON's like, "Bro, we've given you what we were supposed to," and they're like, "Meh, cancel contract," and they're like, "Okay."
Okay, bye now.
Yeah. So, but again, could be entirely wrong. The other company could be entirely right. It's almost like, again, these are like really easy to. All it would take is like show the receipts, but at the same
Yeah.
time, the legal terms have been thrown out, so therefore they can't show the receipts.
Mhm.
You know, it's like when you get the customer service training, and as soon as a customer talks about bringing up a lawyer, you're like, I'm shutting up now.
Yep. Yes. I'm going to get my lawyer involved. Thank you for contacting us. All future communication needs to go through our company's legal department. Thank you. Have a good day. Hang on.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Not that I've ever rehearsed that response ever in my life.
Yep, pretty much. Hopefully nobody here was a part of that, but I have a feeling this Kickstarter or this Game Found was old enough that, or new enough, recent enough that, hold on, when was it? How long ago was this? I don't know. It's not like Kickstarter where I know immediately where to look to see when it founded. I guess I could have looked at the article to see when it founded. Well, it says months of work, so it can't be that old, right?
Well, if you go to the kick, are you on the? Oh, it's Game Found, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why I couldn't. I don't know where on Game Found it publishes the date.
The date it was done. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, moving on. For the next joke, I have to read the headline for this first. Asmodee brings in David Preddy, one of the architects of CMON's Kickstarter strategy, to head up its own crowdfunding and miniatures operations. So I'm pretty sure this next story might be a bad idea. So you see what I meant? Where I'm kind of building a story here. Where it's like we just finished talking.
I was looking at the articles and I was like 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it 4 in a row?
Yeah. Like we just finished talking about how much CMON is doing badly right now, and one of the reasons of that is because they were kind of Ponzi schemed doing their Kickstarter. Where like each Kickstarter was kind of paying for the previous Kickstarter in a way.
Yeah.
So now Asmodee decides, hey, we want to do a crowdfunding and miniatures operation thing. Let's do what they did. Which, I mean, I guess it depends on when this guy was at CMON. Because if he was at CMON in like the early 2010s, like when CMON was at its peak,
and to be to be a little fair with the Ponzi scheme, when you go back to that first article and you start at the bottom of how much money these Kickstarters made, it kind of worked.
Yeah. Yeah, has hired David Preddy, the recently resigned CEO. Oh, so recently resigned. So this This is the guy that was like, "Hey, we're behind on putting our earnings. I'm gonna resign," and Asmodee was like, "Yeah, let's get that guy." What the fuck? What the fuck? I just like. What? Why?
He handed in his resignation September last year, so it's been almost a year.
Yeah. Oh, so
Well,
it's not that. It's not that guy. Okay, so it's not that guy.
No, so and it was so handed in resignation to CMON in September of last year, and then final day at the business was March 9 of this year. That's a ridiculously long notice period.
That's But the excuse goes away of maybe it was when they were at their best. No, this is the guy that was there during the downfall, and Asmodee's like, We want him.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just reading through the article as well. If you scroll down a little more, there's a game called Hand to Hand Wombat,
Oh yeah.
and I'm like, hey, what's going on there?
Oh yeah. That's a hand-to-hand wombat. I think is a Exploding Kittens game. Asmodee might distribute it.
Art
But
style looks a little, yeah.
let me actually read the story here. Preddy spent 8 years at CMON from 2016 as creative director and COO, and was an architect of its growth into one of the one of board gaming's biggest crowdfunding-focused publishers, raising tens of millions of dollars across campaigns for miniatures-focused titles such as flagship Zombicide and its Massive Darkness, Marvel and DC United titles. I feel like I kind of want to do the. Are you sure about that? Because
You
like
sure about that?
2016, so Blood Rage came out in 2015. Like they were already a crowdfunding focused giant then. Like
Yes.
once you start getting into like 2016, like I feel like once you get to 2018 is like the start. We're heading towards the end kind of thing. So is it really like an architect of its growth, or is it really the architect of its downfall? That must have been some sort of interview. But the company's fortunes have plummeted in recent months, with the business slumping. We already read a bunch of that stuff.
Yeah. I was flipping through. I was like, wait a minute. They used that same Zombicide graphic in the other article.
Citing unnamed other work commitments with this final day in March night. Yeah.
I'm drilling the holes in the ship, so I'd like to abandon ship.
Yeah, exactly. So they're just talking about like Asmodee hasn't done really a lot of crowdfunding and miniature line. What? Barely touch. Oh, they're talking about the crowdfunding space. I was like, they've been touching the miniature space for a while. But I mean, originally it was because they didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, but then again, they are in need of cash, so they might be trying to, especially if they're buying up smaller properties. This could be a way of them, trying to like invest in smaller properties, smaller games, smaller IPs, without worrying about the financial loss behind them. Because with crowdfunding, you can be like, do people want this? And then they can say, yes, I do, or no, I don't. And then you'll be like, cool, we just wasted a little bit of product development on it. But other than that, versus like developing it and then pushing out the game and then it being and then it just nobody buying it and it just sitting on shelves. So, that
was like that was the whole basis behind Kickstarter,
Right.
and all this crowdfunding stuff to begin with.
And that was the whole reason why, like, I understood why. Like, I always understood why. People are like, why are larger companies using it when they've got the funding? It's like, because you want to just be able to make everything, and sometimes people don't want everything, and this lets you determine if people actually want what you've got. So, this is thought to be the Exploding Kittens, which it made a strategic investment short of a buyout in 2021. The business has raised more than almost $1 million in a Kickstarter campaign for Hand to Hand Wombat. Yeah. Then they talk about the campaign for the professor for the YouTube channel Tolarian Community College. They did a Kickstarter for a deck box that was designed in collaboration with GameGenic, who's owned by Asmodee. So a lot of like extended family Kickstarters and crowdfundings, but not that many, legit things. We're happy to have David Preddy on board, and we'll be providing more information on his role at a later date. So he spent 3 years as creative director at CMON, during which he established the company's creative and production department and helped build Kickstarter as one of its main sources. Again, that's bullshit. As it's one of its main sources of income in 2016, I feel like hold on. All right, we're deviating from the thing here. We got to look up how much money did CMON raise before before 2017. So we're gonna assume 2016.
Okay.
But are these in order?
I don't. I mean,
They look in order.
it's a couple of scrolls down, but CMON ran on Kickstarter for 12 years with almost 60 campaigns worth a combined total of $108 million.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. When did this one back? All right. So this was 2018. Was Death May Die? So that, let's see, Rising Sun. Okay, so maybe some of those, maybe a lot of these games were later than I thought. All right, I know Black Plague ended in 2015. I know this is probably not interesting to half people, but you know, everybody loves smelling out some BS. All right. Let's see here. Funding period was March 2016. Okay, so we're almost there. All right, let's do.
There we go. Created 57.
All right, so this one's. I should probably leave these open, but. Okay, so here it is. This one was the first one in 2017. All right, so now all of these. Oh, wow, they even got the classic Cool Mini or Not logo. All right, so let's see. We've got, so right off the bat, Massive Darkness, $3.5 million. That would have been around the time that this guy started, so we're not going to give him that. So $3.5 million for that one. You know, almost $1 million for Rum and Bones Second Tide. $1 million there, so that's what? We're at what, $5.5 million right now?
That's right.
383, so, you know, we'll say, you know, 5.9. Arcadia Quest Inferno, 1.7 million. So now that's 6. So was that $7.6 million? Yeah, I'll stop at Blood Rage, so we don't have to go all the way. So $7.6 million, another $1.4 million. So that's what, $9 million right there? Zombicide, $4 million. So we're at $13 million before this guy even shows up. See, $13.5 million. You know, so $14.5 million, and I'm not even done. That just it. Those are 2 years before this guy starts. 2 years before this guy starts. But he established the company's creative and production department, which that could be true. Helped build up Kickstarter as one of its main sources of income. $14 million in 2 years, but this guy is the reason that Kickstarter is one of its main sources of income. Uh-huh. And even then, like I said, I didn't even keep going back all the way. We didn't even get to the other that was only one Zombicide in there, or maybe 2. No, it was only one Zombicide. In those numbers I read out, there was only one Zombicide game in there. oversaw CMON switch from Kickstarter to GameFound last year, ending 12 years of running almost 60 campaigns for worth a combined $108 million. So, like, yeah.
That one didn't fund very high.
So the numbers I read, it says he didn't start. He got named COO in 2019. He started in 2016. He got COO in 2019. The numbers I read were all the Kickstarters from 2016 and before, which if it were launched in 2016, it means it was in development way before that. So, like, this was all, the numbers I read out was everything that happened before this guy even started at the company. So it's like, I'm not saying that he didn't help bring in a bunch of money, because, like, especially if you look at $108 million compared to the, like, 14 I said, or you see, like, combined $22.6 million since 2020, you know, that, yes, he may have done a large percentage of money. However, I don't think you can say build up Kickstarter as one of its main sources of income after raising $14 million. I think once you put an S on the end of million, I think you've, like, established a main source of income.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we don't need to go into the detailed history about the rest of this, but now, so moving on before I get a cease and desist letter from somebody, we're going to shift our story, because now we've talked about CMON, we've talked about Asmodee a little bit, and now we've talked about Asmodee buying or grabbing up some of CMON stuff, including their terrible people. So let's talk about Asmodee. Specifically, by the way, I came up with a new holiday for a famous sci-fi author, but now I'm getting cease and desist letters, speaking of which. I just don't understand what's wrong with Isaac Asmodee. That one was a reach, but I loved it at the end. So, the title of this is a little weird compared to the rest of the article. Board game giant Asmodee made 100 times less profit than Games Workshop. First of all, duh.
Duh.
That's the other thing, is, like, the person who wrote this article clearly does not understand too much about gaming, because something you'll understand in the concept of games is that, like, before we go into this, let's break down the numbers here, okay? We'll shift off screen here for a second. Let me break down the numbers, and let me caveat this with the fact of my numbers are probably 2 years off. All right, so. And they may even be more than that, because I haven't looked at the detailed breakdown in a while. But, like, overall, tabletop gaming as a whole, by estimations, and I'm pretty sure this might be just North America. I could be wrong. But we'll just say, let's assume just North America, $2 billion. The entirety of tabletop games. That's board games, card games, RPGs, minis games, everything. Everything. Which, by the way, was why when people are like, why is there so much, like, more money in video games bring in, like tens and hundreds of billions of dollars, like, as a whole. Like, you know. So let's just say $2 billion. 70, or no, let's see, it's not 70. It's
I
like,
think that number's low.
Really?
Yeah.
What,
just looking in the article.
Are you talking about video games?
No, I'm talking about board gaming.
What do they
I think
say?
that number's low. So in the article, it says in 24-25,
Yeah.
Asmodee pulled in 1.59 billion.
Well, like I said,
in sales.
My numbers could be way off. And also, that's probably global sales. I'm talking about just North America. The estimations in the literature I read, I'm pretty sure it was only North America. And I'm pretty sure that 1.3 billion, also the 1.59 billion in sales, pretty sure that's probably globally as a company. which makes sense. But regardless, I'm using this as a demonstration. So for just the North American market, you know, now I'm forgetting what all the numbers are, but up to half, 60% to half of the tabletop gaming industry is CCGs. Like Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, all of that. Half the industry, like right off the top, is that. Like that is the backbone of the industry. So when people talk about like why is Magic so big or why is Pokemon so big? Cuz it sells. Like why does my store have so much Magic stuff? Because your store is kept open by Magic cards. Unless you're like an indie like a minis focused only store or a cafe or something like that, chances are Magic the Gathering is keeping that store open, or Pokemon, or
100%.
or something like
Friday
that.
Night Magic, kids.
Yeah.
Friday Night Magic.
I've seen stores talk about how their Friday Night Magic will pay for the week. their expenses. So it's like all their expenses are paid in one night for the week. So everything else that they sell is just gravy on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the next biggest category is your non-collectible miniatures. This is where Games Workshop falls in. So that's like, so if we say that TCGs are like 50 to 60%, the next 30% is like Games Workshop, essentially. But
Games Workshop. But whatever Games Workshop is selling,
exactly,
it's in that 30%.
But not always, because like the D&D minis also get included in here, and they do sell a lot. Like they usually get incorporated into that category as well. So
Games Workshop should just start making them and then take the whole pie.
Don't give them ideas. Besides, they already have the Lord of the Rings minis. There you go. The next, then it's like board games are like 20%. And then like whatever's
That's
left of all, that's 100. Okay,
That's
so
100.
like a few, it's like sub 10% is like RPGs. It's very small.
Well, yeah, RPGs are small. I mean, you got to buy the launcher, you got to buy the rockets, you got to have a place to shoot. Oh. Fictional wargaming. Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha. I'm with you now.
So when we get a chance, I'll pull up. I've got some old articles I could pull up that have this information, that have some stuff that have like better number breakdowns. But anyways, that's what I'm saying. Like, you're comparing apples and oranges if you're comparing Games Workshop to Asmodee. Apples and oranges. Anyways, that's before we even get into the article. That was a hell of a side tangent. Board game publisher and distribution giant Asmodee has published its annual report for the 24-25 financial year. This is the important part of this article and why I wanted to put it in here. Its first financial year ending since it got broken off from Embracer Group. So remember, Embracer Group bought up a bunch of companies, got saddled with a bunch of debt from buying all those companies, thought they were going to get some Saudi investors or something like that. Didn't. Realized they were stuck with a bunch of debt and were like, shit, well, we're going to do what companies do and spin off all the companies and put them with the debt so our main books look clear. It's turned a profit, barely. The firm's net profit for the year was $5 million on paper, dropping to $1.3 million after accounting for exchange rate fluctuations with its various subsidies. That's still a lot of money. But in 23-24, Games Workshop realized a $204 million profit, despite having a far lower turnover. What gives? Again, apples and oranges.
100%. Welcome to corporate finance, where everything's made up and the points don't matter.
Right. Now, the only thing that's part of that is they do mention here, and let me actually get the article back up. There is a statement in here where technically Asmodee owns a slice of that TCG market because they have their Star Wars Unlimited thing. And in fact, I'm fairly certain that that Star Wars Unlimited game is funding pretty much all of Fantasy Flight these days. Because I imagine some of the other games are not putting, especially since they don't, Marvel Champions and Arkham Horror, they do still put out stuff for, but it's not as frequent.
What?
Yeah. So, also, you got to remember that these company like Games Workshop is in like a healthy growth. Not well, who knows? It's probably unhealthy, but they're in a steady growth where they're trying to build and expand, where their market share is growing, especially with the things like the Amazon deal. Like hell, that could be half the reason there of the Amazon deal could be a giant part of where that money's coming from. Asmodee's not making Amazon money. They're not making like Amazon Prime deals. So again, that's why it's like apples and oranges here. But because of all this, Games Workshop's continually worrying about growth. They just financed a new factory in Nottingham, I think is where they were talking about. But if you listen to all this, Asmodee's in the we need to survive mode, where Asmodee paid out a total of $107 million on financial expenses last year. The largest items under that were, you remember all that debt we were talking about previously? $65.8 million in interest payments for a bridging loan, and then $25 million of interest payments for bonds, so just over $90 million in interest payments to creditors. So, and again, so while Games Workshop is distributing its profit to shareholders, employees, and investing funds in its business, Asmodee is taking care of debts. And, I mean, if you go through the rest of this article, they talk about, like, they are surviving. Like, they got saddled with all this debt, but they're making bank. Like, they're paying it off. They took a loan, bridging loan, to kind of like, this is like a, hey, we need short-term cash to kind of get through, this separation kind of thing. And then they paid that back. They paid back the loan. I mean, granted, they did it by
they're doing what us normal folk do. You drop down to ramen and only order water.
They paid it off according to this by issuing bonds. So that's that's not exactly the same. But meaning
why is Catan in the back of that picture?
What picture?
The one all the way at the top.
Well, they own Catan. Asmodee owns Catan.
Okay.
Yeah.
What don't they own? Let me type that into Google. What doesn't Asmodee own?
Right. So, yeah, the rest of the article talks about how that Asmodee, the biggest business in global board game. There's your key word there. Board game. Has a clear profit 1,000 times smaller than its revenue. Yeah, because Embracer Group said Asmodee is actually able to churn a profit, so we're going to put all of our data on them because it will survive. Because you got to figure, like, a lot of the rest of the stuff they own was video game groups, and yes, video games can make a lot of money, but video games also have a longer development time, I think. I could be wrong on that one, but I'm pretty sure they have a lot. So you have less, or you may have more money coming infrequently, whereas Asmodee is making money all the time because they're just pumping out releases, especially with that TCG going. They're just money. It's a money machine. They may not be making a lot of money, but it is making money constantly at a decent rate. And that's why
Star Citizen's still in development.
Well, I mean, that's that's become a meme at this point.
The game has not released a version 1 yet. It's still version 0.
I mean, Minecraft was in beta for the longest time too. So yeah, that's just it's just back to the, like, sometimes people write articles and you have to kind of read between the lines because it's like, okay, there's some good information here, but clearly somebody. It's just like when people wonder, like, they talk about, like, board games and then they don't realize the level of where they sit in the world. It's like, you're not the biggest.
Well, and so my thing would be like, sure, Asmodee made 100 times less profit than Games Workshop. Where was the well, obviously with Asmodee, it was all going into loans and stuff, but like, what is the profit proportion to like full on revenue?
Well, that's what they were
Like,
saying
find
is
that one.
that's what he was saying is like it's like 1,000 times less than their revenue. They have a profit of 1,000 times smaller than its revenue, but that's again because they're having to spend it all to get out of the hole that was dug for them.
Was it? Yeah.
They got somebody dug a hole and then pushed them into it, and then somebody else is at the
Climb
top.
out.
Somebody else at the top is like, "Hey, why isn't much of this water going into that hole? You're not climbing out of that hole fast enough. What's the problem?"
Why you in that hole there, buddy?
Yeah.
Somebody push you in.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah, that would really be really bad there. All right. So let's move on. Let's talk about, speaking of, again, talking about CMON, but no longer at CMON. This sequel will have you saying, "Let me Valhalla at ya." We already knew Blood Rage was getting a sequel because they mentioned it when Tabletop Tycoon bought them. New publisher Tycoon Games, which, by the way, we're gonna get to that in a second. Also, warning, has announced Blood Rage Valhalla, standalone sequel to Eric Lang's iconic board game and Norse myths. New publisher Tabletop Tycoon has revealed that this standalone sequel to the 2015 original is in development, with a game found campaign launching soon. It'll be a strategy board game steeped in Norse mythology. Unlike its sibling, this version takes place in the afterlife. That's kind of cool.
Okay.
'Cause
So like in Blood Rage, you were
in-
fighting to get into Valhalla.
Yeah, because it was like you wanted your people to die and go to Valhalla. You got points based on like when they went to Valhalla, and this is like, okay, well now they're there.
Yeah. All right. Sweet. So how many people are gonna like make up modes of this game? It's like, all right, we gotta play Blood Rage,
Yeah,
and then Ragnarok happens, and now we start playing Valhalla.
you're skipping ahead here because it mentions it in the article. So, or was it in this article? It might have been another one. Anyways, unlike Tycoon Games calls it an area control war game in which you will fight eternally for the favor of the gods. Familiar mechanics twisted by the gods includes a player board with the same spread of actions such as summon, march, upgrade, quest, and contest, plus a lot of upgrade slots. So it's very similar, which featured the card drafting rounds with the area control wargaming. Let me see, where's it? Like many of the games originally published by CMON, a big part of Blood Rage's appeal comes from the excellent miniatures packed into the box. Shows renders of several new figures and silhouettes of others. They should be an equal of the original game. So yeah, you can see some decent looking minis in there. Speaking of the original game, Tycoon Games states that the repackaged and remastered versions of Eric Lane's original Godly series, Blood Rage, Rising Sun, and Ankh, plus their expansions, will be made available through the crowdfunding campaign. So that not only will it be you can get this new game, but we're going to be doing reprints of the old games as well. So, okay, they don't
do reprints of the gold versions of those, because I still
well,
have those.
it may not. It says the expansions, but it may not be the exclusives.
Okay, all right, that's good.
But it doesn't say. It wasn't this article. It must have been the Board Game Geek version of this article. There is going to be like a campaign that has you go between, or at least I saw them mention it was like a campaign from Blood Rage into Valhalla.
Into Valhalla.
Yeah.
I saw somebody did that with one of the Ninja Turtle movies, where like Raphael goes to the theater and watches Critters.
Oh no.
Yeah, so like you start watching the Ninja Turtles movie, and when he goes in the theater, you stop. You then watch Critters in its entirety, and then when that ends, you turn Ninja Turtles back on because Raphael's walking out of the theater.
That's funny. All right, so speaking of Tycoon Games, I collected a lot of Beanie Babies back in the day. You might even say I was a tycoon. So, yeah. Tabletop Tycoon rebrands from Tabletop Tycoon to Tycoon Games to mark
It
the
happened in the middle of that previous article.
next chapter in the company's development. No, I just found it funny because if you remember, I mentioned that if you look back enough, that Dan Yarrington, if you look at enough of his of like Reddit posts and like testimonials, people talk about like, I have not had a good experience dealing with this guy, or they talk about like, I've, like, I backed this Kickstarter and I regret it, blah 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 blah. And the way he got around a lot of the bad reviews is he kept changing the name of his company. Because it started off, it may have started off as something else, but it was Game Salute, and then then there was something else, and then I think it went from that to Tabletop Tycoon.
And now it's going to Tycoon
And so
Games.
now it's going to Tycoon Games. So it's like, if you have all these like Better Business Bureau things, it's like, oh, that's not us. We're somebody else now. So it was just like, when I heard this, I was like, that's just funny as hell. Tabletop Tycoon announced they'll be going through a rebranding process to mark the next chapter in the company's development. As a part of this process, Tabletop Tycoon will become Tycoon Games. Because it's like, you could have just made it Tabletop Tycoon. Like, you didn't need to say Tycoon Games. It adds the game or games to the company name and new logo, which should help customers more easily characterize the company as a part of the games industry. Because Tabletop Tycoon doesn't say games.
Well, you can do a lot of stuff on a tabletop.
You're not wrong. The name Tycoon Games embodies our ambition to lead the games industry with bold creativity, quality craftsmanship, and a dedication to making the world better one game at a time, said Dan Yarrington, CEO of Tycoon Games.
Hey, damn it, we got to go to New Hampshire now.
Oh, yeah, the local pinball arcade.
100 pinball and arcade games?
They apparently also deal in pinball machines under their Pinball Games subsidiary.
Pinball game. I bet they make pasta strainers. It's got to be what they.
I mean, that's more of a reason than anything else to change your name to Tycoon Games, because you eliminate the tabletop, because pinball doesn't exactly mean tabletop. But that's not what they said in here. They just said games. They didn't say they talk about acquiring all the tabletop game stuff, and then they say down at the bottom. So yeah.
That's Londonderry, New Hampshire. That's got to be. Where is that?
Londonderry. Sounds like Dingleberry.
Londonderry. Well, it's a city in Northern Ireland, and it's also a town in New Hampshire. There we go.
We can't even find the town.
It's 507 miles away from us.
So that's what, like 12-hour drive?
It says, yeah, at 8:30 at night on Monday.
Yeah.
It's what the okay, gosh. No, not that California, you idiot. Much better. There we go. It says 8 hours and 15 minutes at 8:40 at night on Monday.
Wow. That's not bad, actually.
You zoom in on map. Construction.
All right, moving on. I went to buy a panini maker yesterday, but the salesperson wasn't really giving me a lot of info. I had to press them for more information. So I feel like a lot of these news are just sequels to the previous news section we had.
Yeah.
Because like we talked about like, oh hey, Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford left WotC, and it was like, what are they gonna do next? And I kept making jokes it'd be funny if they join Paizo. Well, they did the next biggest thing where they went to Darrington Press, the Critical Role people instead.
Oh, there you go.
So, let's see. They announced
I was just looking at the tagline. Like, dude leaves WotC. Asmodee hires David Britt. Hey, we just talked about that.
Yeah. Well, because this column is just about people on the move. It's just that it talks about that. Travis Willingham, CEO of Critical. Oh yeah, he had hired the pair to work at Darrington Press, Critical Role Productions, games publishing division. Hiring plays into Critical Role's continued expansion of the company beyond the original web series production, which has included a further expansion into producing original RPG projects. So yeah, and then it just goes into more to talking about some of the other things that we've mentioned. But I just thought it was funny, just going from that I had said something like, oh, hey, I wonder if they're going to do something, go to somewhere else. And then sure enough, I was kind of hoping they would do their own thing. Because I think that would have been cool of like, what would they do without any strings attached? You know, like the Ultron, like I had no strings on me. Like what would they do from there? But maybe there's probably less strings now, but you still are playing in somebody else's sandbox. All right. My math teacher friend got super excited when I offered to teach him 40K the other day. He even showed up with a protractor and everything, which I thought was kind of weird. Turns out I made a typo and asked if he wanted to learn about dark angles. So, 40K announced their new loot box, basically. So they do, like you have your booster packs in Magic. Well, they have booster packs in Warhammer also. They're just a little less infrequent, or a little more infrequent, whatever the right way of saying that is. So Strike Force Varial from the Dark Angels, they're coming to the latest version of the Warhammer Heroes series. So Warhammer Heroes is like, usually get them at like, or they're usually on sale at like Target, but like it'll just be a booster box of Space Marines or Age of Sigmar guys, and it's like, you know, $6 to $8, and you just get basically a sprue of a guy, and then, you know, it's like you can collect all 6. This one is unique because it's the first time they're including kill team cards in the box. And if you get all 6 guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys. If you get all 7
And
guys,
a mystery guy.
Yeah, if you get all 7 guys, then you've got a kill team. So, however, everybody's a little bit complaining about this new setup, because while it's themed around Dark Angels, all these sculpts are like old sculpts. Like there's nothing. The only thing that makes them Dark Angels is that they're painted like Dark Angels. Like this is just the regular Infernus Marine. Like these aren't new sculpts. These are just the existing sculpts, but just painted to look like Dark Angels, which I guess is fine. Just don't try and. The only thing is they've been really cagey about the commander figure here, and they're not showing it off for some reason. Which maybe hopefully.
I'm looking that barrel's got a Gatling gun, man.
Are you talking about over here?
Yeah, the 7th guy.
That could also just be a sword.
Hope not.
Because like if you see
the way those rings are spaced,
there's a little, yeah, it could be.
I think it's a Gatling gun.
It could be. It's just the pose is kind of off. Like you'd think for a Gatling gun, they'd be like firm stance kind of, whereas this guy's kind of like almost like he's over the shoulder almost. That's what makes me think it's
Unless
like
that's where it's mounted.
That's what makes me think it's like a staff or like a hammer or something. And yeah, it's a lieutenant, so that's usually not who carries the Gatling gun. But yeah, they're all new. They're new sculpts, but they're push fit. I mean, I guess they're technically slightly different sculpts, but they're still kind of like, there's nothing like the shoulder pads aren't molded. Like those look like just transfers. Yeah. Oh, it could be a chaplain with a Crozius. So that's like basically a staff with like a cross kind of thing at the top. The chaplains are the ones with like the white face. Like the guy that kept challenging Titus in Space Marine. Space Marine 2.
You wanted to reach in there and smack him.
Yeah, that was the chaplain. But the other reason, the big reason why everybody's hating on Games Workshop for this is because they changed how these things are going to work. So it used to be, so you've got 6 to 8. It would be like 6 to 7 models. The display box that you get comes with 8. And the way it used to work is they would guarantee if you buy a display box, you got all 6 figures, and then you just got 2 random extras. They've now changed it so it's going to be completely random. So if you buy a display box, there's no guarantee that you'll end up with all of them. Heck, you could buy a display box and end up with 8 copies of the same mini. And everyone's like, you son of a bitch! You did the greedy thing! We didn't want you to do the greedy thing! And Games Workshop's like, I'm sorry, I can't smell you over this money.
Yeah.
Do I need to pull back up the thing where it was talking about why is Games Workshop making so much more money?
And the other thing along with that is people are they're bitching, but are you going to stop buying?
Yeah, that's The
You're
other
not
half
gonna
of
stop buying.
the other half of this is people like these things get scalped up for some reason. I guess usually because there's like an exclusive sculpt or something in there that you can't get. But like I mentioned that you can find these at Target.
He's actually painted black with a giant question mark.
Yeah. I mentioned that you can usually find these at Target. I've also never found these. I've never found the Space
Price sticker
Marine
on the shelf.
the Space Marines version at Target. I've seen the Age of Sigmar ones. But like usually the Space Marines one like sells out like super fast or never makes it to stores or something like that. In fact, it was a big deal like the original or the first 2 other film mall. Like it was a big deal with the Death Guard because when the Kill Team starter set came out, the Death Guard army that they included in there was in fact it was like the season 2 or 3 Warhammer Heroes minis, but now packaged up in one place. You could buy them all, and it was like I think it was like $100 to buy them all together online, but then it was $100 to buy the starter set and get them and another set of Space Marines. So it was like everybody was like, oh thank God. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I like the idea of the Space Marines box because it's like, oh hey, I met like, or especially like, there's been once or twice that they've been at the store because like we did a I think we did a painting thing once with one of the last times that you could actually get them in the store where you bought them all, and that might be what Phil said, where we like bought them all and then like primed them up and used them for like a speed painting thing. But having them in the stores and just like by the register where I could just be like, oh, I need like $6 more to get a free table or stamp on my card. Let me just add that line because like who doesn't need more Space Marines? Yeah. So just
Well, Philip also said you could do that. I think he was talking about when I said paint it black. Just dip it in Vanta black.
yeah. That's right. Where it's like the black where and like it's just a hole in space now.
That green Riddler
Yeah.
question mark on there.
Yeah. So you get Sternguard Sergeant. Sternguard Sergeant, Infernus Marine, Assault Intercessor, Infiltrator, Intercessor, and a Reaver. So yeah, assuming that you could get all 7, that is a pretty easy way to get into Kill Team. Especially you can like piecemeal it. So it's like that zip thing where it's like pay in 4. Now it's like pay in 12 because that might be how many it takes for you to get it. But speaking of Game Workshop, did you hear about the group of barbers that are going around shaving people's heads and taking all the hair? Scalpers be going crazy. This was actually really funny, at least to me. So I mentioned scalpers, right? And like this has become a big, huge problem in Warhammer because like they're limiting how much stock they make of things, like especially things that aren't their big, huge starter sets. So like Kill Team Typhon just came out, and I got it to get the new Tyranid models, which they look fucking amazing. But like they got bought out super fast, and people will then flip them on eBay for like $100 more. So, and also we've been getting to the end of like the heresy books. Like they came out with a new heresy book that's like a bunch of small stories to like end end the series and like wrap up the Siege of Terra. And every time they release a book, they do like a huge deluxe book binding, which, by the way, Phil talks in the chat. Originally designed for Japan to trump up 40K since they got the whole the gachapons, which we'll talk about in bonus bits if we get there. But anyways, getting back to this, so they saw that there was going to be a bunch of bots because there was a new heresy book, new special deluxe printing of the book, and they saw that scalping was getting bad, so they literally killed the website to stop scalpers from getting their orders in. So if there's one thing that gets fans...
Not the worst idea.
Yeah. If the one thing that gets fans of 40K and all its media even madder than their favorite army getting nerfed, it's scalpers buying up all the stock of GW's shiny new thing to resell online at wildly inflated prices. The question of whether Uncle G-Dubs is really doing all I can to make sure real fans can get the new box set as at a constant refrain. So, quite a shock then. On Tuesday, this was a couple Tuesdays ago, it deliberately crashed its own Warhammer web store just to stop a network of bots buying bulk special edition copies of the new Horus Heresy book. The new Black Legion anthology Era of Ruin, the 65th installment in its series of Horus Heresy books, was coming out this week. The regular edition was available immediately and still remains so, but the fancy limited stock faux leather special design was to drop at 5 a.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, June 10th, with a queue system in place to keep the bots at bay. But that system evidently failed. When Tuesday came, the Warhammer 40K book fans descended on the website to find it crashed and inaccessible. It later posted the statement above here on social channels to explain a temporary outage. It's not exactly clear when the takedown took place, but we've paused Warhammer.com for a short period. Scalpers attempted to use bots to bypass our normal safeguards in order to bulk buy the special edition of Era of Ruin. We caught this happening in real time, so we pulled Warhammer.com offline, and as a result, it's pausing the launch of Era of Ruin and removed it from the Warhammer.com for the time being. Fans wanting a copy now have to sign up for an email alert to be told when it's going back on sale. And so I don't know if this ever did get resolved, but it was just, I remember hearing about this and I was like, that's funny. So it's unusual for any large-scale web store to feel the need to shut down its entire website globally to deal with a bulk buying issue, at least based on my experience working at a PC Games web store. So I mean, good on them for at least, they can't, like, so when someone's like, what are you doing to combat scalpers? So like, look, bro, we shut down our entire store for a handful of hours. That costs us who knows how much money. It's got to be it's got to be at least in the tens of thousands of dollars that they could have lost.
Because we're only thinking about the launch of that special edition. What about people who were just doing like some normal?
Yeah.
Like,
well, like
I want
said,
to see if any other stuff. Maybe this is on clearance today. Let's take a look.
Yeah. Well. But yeah, like, so like anybody just like, oh, I need the tournament's coming up. I need to buy that new set of Space Marines. Oh, what do you mean I can't? Warhammer's down.
Yep. Oh, I finally saved my money. I can get that official Titan. Yes. Ah, oh, damn it.
Yep. Well, I'm gonna go spend it on something else.
Gambling and booze.
All right. One last news story. If you streamed the doctors taking care of USC fighters after a fight, would that be considered an unboxing stream? This kind of blew my mind. So, you need to spend $165 to play Magic's new limited format. And that's assuming that your store does it at MSRP. Commander Box Leagues will launch during the Edge of Eternity's pre-release. So it's a Commander limited league. So for those that have zero interest in Magic, let me spell out what Commander is so that, in case you don't know, so that you'll understand why this is so weird. So the way Commander works, it was actually designed. It was actually a bunch of fans made the format. They called it EDH, and then Magic made it official and called it Commander, where it's a 100-card deck. Each card has to be completely different except for like basic lands. So
Which I still used different artwork lands for all the lands I put in my deck.
So yeah, every card, every permanent you're using in there has to be a different permanent. And then you have like a commander overall that's like the commander, the colors that they have is the only colors that you can use in the deck. So like if the card you're using as a commander is white, then you can only have white mana cards in your, white cards that use white mana in your deck. And like colorless too, I think technically. But like, so that's why you see a lot of commanders that'll be like 3 colors, because then they can put 3 colors of cards in their deck. So the Commander Box League will be playable for the first time during Edge of Eternity's pre-release running 25th through the 31st. Which also, by the way, happens to be the same weekend that the new Horus Heresy box set comes out. So if you're going to spend $165 on a game thing, you're like halfway to a Heresy box. So yeah, so the way this commander is, you buy a booster box. That's why it's $165. And again, they say $165 on Amazon. That's not what you're paying for necessarily paying for at your local store. So in this form, so you may have played like a format called Sealed, which is like, okay, you buy 6 booster packs, make a deck, have fun. This is the same thing, just like times 5 or whatever, where you purchase a box of the new set, then build a 60-card deck from its 30 boosters. Oh, I was right there. Then you play against 2 or 3 other players with standard commander rules. Kind of. This is where it gets even weirder. So the format abandons some of the restrictions that make building a commander deck a fun challenge. You can use multiple copies of the cards and ignore the color identity of your commander while determining what other cards you can include. With a whole box to work with, decks promise to be far more sculpted than a standard sealed competition where players build a 40-card deck from 6 boosters. Ignoring the color identity restriction removes the trade-offs inherited in monocolored commanders and will give a huge advantage to whoever in the pod was lucky enough to open the biggest bomb. I don't know, it just feels like, are you really playing Commander then at that point?
So one of the questions I have is, they're including lands in that card count?
The 60 cards, yes.
Okay. So that's not even 2 cards per booster.
Yeah.
Because you gotta have lands.
Like
yeah, so not Commander.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like this isn't Commander. This is just a booster sealed event that just happens to borrow the. I mean, the part that is Commander is the part where it's like you have the commander in the command slot in the command zone, and you can bring them out, and then if they die, you can bring them out for more mana. You know that part.
Like +2 every time.
Something like that. I think it's +2. I think you're right. And like if your commander takes X amount of commander damage, then they die completely and you win or whatever. But I mean, it's just why, like, if you're gonna do first of all, the idea of a box league is redonkulous, because like how many? That's like saying like, hey, who wants to spend a crap ton of money on Magic? Because, you're already saying, like, you're paying $165 just to play in a single event. Granted, you're going to get a bunch of cards. And granted, most of the people that are probably, like, if you were going to buy a box, this would be a fun way of doing it. Where it's like, I was going to buy a booster box of the new set anyways. Let me just play in this tournament or, this event with it. Fair. However, it's like, guys, you could do 100-card... you could do regular commander rules you've got, what is it? Each pack is like 15 cards, 15 times 30. So that's like 450 cards.
Yeah.
And granted, so if you've got a deck of 100 cards, you're probably looking at least 30 something of them being lands.
I pulled it up on Google. It's between 34 to 40 lands.
Yeah.
In typical Commander.
So you're
deck.
looking at 60 to 65 cards out of 450.
Yeah.
Like I think we can do one. Granted, you're going to get a lot of duplicates of commons, but still.
Okay. Because that's one of the things. So like going back to the Warhammer thing,
Yeah.
it's like it used to was you bought the booster box and you got everything. With Magic, you already know you're buying the booster box.
Yeah.
And the fates could align. Every pack could be exactly the same.
Fair.
You got 30 copies of 15 different cards.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I would even, like, the 60 card makes sense of, like, but I feel like the 60 card with the double or with the multiple copies and none of the land restriction, the commander restrictions, I feel like it's like a bridge too far. Like, any single one of those things makes sense. Putting them all together, it's like, well, now we're just not really playing commander. You're adding less
pulling
rules.
the commander out of there.
You're adding less rules to regular Magic than you are the removing them. Like, you're really just adding one or two things to regular Magic than you are than the amount of things you're removing from commander.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, that was that's your news. So, yeah. So, we did talk, or I was thinking, do I want to talk about? I'm trying to figure out if I want to do free RPG Day stuff here or in bonus bits, but it is already late. I will just say I did do free RPG Day this year. I was trying to quickly see if I could grab the stuff I got for it. I'm not going to do a deep dive like I did last time because that was boring. But I just did kind of want to flip through basically the few things I got. It was really cool this year because Dispelled Dice, the fancy resin dice, they actually included free stuff in there.
Oh, nice.
Which, like, granted, it was only a handful of them, so it's not like it was on the table for you to pick. The way our store did is, like, if you made, like, a $20 purchase, you got put into a raffle for it. But still, it's, like, a chance of getting a cool resin die at, like, no cost. So for one of the things, I saw this and thought of you, Philip. It's the Thunder Road Vendetta RPG.
Oh, nice.
But it's one of those ones that's like a little, it's like a Mad Libs notepad kind of thing. So it's called Gas and Guns A Go-Go. It's a no prep quick play version of the upcoming Thunder Road Vendetta RPG. So we may have to do this on the podcast at some point, like when we need filler stuff. I was running Tales of the Valiant in the morning for the kids, so I managed to get the Tales of the Valiant, the free RPG Day thing. Also, you know me and anything Arkham Horror.
Anything Arkham Horror.
So I had to get the Arkham Horror. Oh, I showed the back. The Arkham Horror Adventure. I'm actually surprised I haven't played this yet. The Arkham Horror role playing game. But it's on my like to-do list of like I want to play it. It's just one of those like I know I'm not going to get to play it that much, so I don't want to buy it yet. It might be I play it and I love it and then I buy it, but at this point, I talked about in some of the bonus bits the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game, so I got the comic book that they have for that. So this is like it's like a whole. Well, this says it's an expansion preview, but it also features like a Thunderbolt adventure. But it's it's a comic book. That's what I love about their stuff. Is like their like free RPG Day stuff is like a comic book adventure thing.
Nice.
I know I wasn't a huge fan of Dragonbane when I played it, but their artwork and stuff just looks so great that I had to pick it up.
Oh yeah.
This is the one that has like the Mallard Knight, so like the duck in armor. So that, and then the last thing I got was this was actually the first thing I picked up was the level 1. This is like a little book of micro RPGs. I don't know if you remember, but it was last year we talked about it was the one that had the like you're a Discord mod of like or you're a mod of an abandoned Discord, and you're like documenting the Discord shutting down. So just kind of weird, cool ideas that I thought would be really cool. Plus, it's like you're getting a bunch of things. So, have I looked at any of them yet? No. But I'm too busy working on like Patreon games and stuff like that. So yeah, there you go. That was the quick breeze through. And I know it's a lot, not a huge amount of content in this episode, but A, I had to do that late, and B, I had to, some call that practice. Nice. I'm not exactly sure which part that was for. Oh, yeah. But we had to skip a week, and then we didn't have a guest this time. So, I had to make do with on the fly, and there was a lot of news to talk about. So, I think that's where we're going to call it. We will do some talk because, we went and saw Gundam stuff.
Did some stuff.
We did some stuff.
Great.
It was great. Yeah, we went and saw the. Did you ever send me the photo?
Oh, no, I still didn't look it up. I was like, yeah, I'll look it up. And then we started the show.
Yeah.
I I can't look it up at the moment.
So while Philip's looking that up, or actually before you can look it up after I play this. Oh, you want me to do it?
I can't hear anything coming through.
Oh, okay.
You said you were playing something, and I'm like, okay, nothing's playing.
That's weird. All right. It's probably just the way I have the sound stuff working. Anyways, I got the music playing, in other words.
Oh, that's been our show. Thank you guys for hanging out in the chat. Checking out their new ranking system for how much you participate in the chat. That's yeah, okay, cool. If you like what you see, you guys got to check us out, boardsandswords.com/live. It's got the link to where we be, what our schedule is. Also check us out, patreon.com/boardsandswords. You can help support the show. Chris Dad Jokes Your Games. We got bonus bits. We got a special channel in the Discord. Nobody can see it unless you're actually one of the patrons.
No, the cool kids.
It's hidden. It's got a little lock on it. It's kind of cool. And dice. There's dice. They're somewhere. We don't know yet. We're figuring it out. But there's dice.
All right. Remember, boardsandswords.com has got all the information. Also, feedback at boardsandswords.com. Let us know who we need to get on the show next, who we need to talk to. In 2 weeks, we'll be back with another show. We're going to have Eric on. He's been on the show before from What's Eric Playing. We're going to do a Gen Con preview show. I'm not going to Gen Con this year, but we can still talk about what's coming out.
We can do Gen Can.
Yeah, there you go. So, in the meantime, make sure you check out the Patreon, like he said, patreon.com/boardsandswords. And remember that every gamer has a story, and this one should be don't hire the person that sunk GW or sunk CMON to run your Kickstarter campaigns. Like, hey, I know it's actually getting towards the end, so I don't need to fade it out. All right, that is the show, patrons. We are going to have at least a little bit of bonus bits in the chat, so feel free to jump in, and we'll be there soon. But I'm going to go ahead and stop